How's it going, everybody? Michael Lamar here. Really excited for today. I love really interactive workshops, so I'm going to be asking some questions. Feel free to ask me some questions. I can see the chat room here on the right, so I'll be kind of skimming through as we go. The main focus today is we want to look to see how we could find the best swing trades and the best trades in general this August, which is coming right up basically. 2018. Along the way, I'm going to also show you a cool little case study of how I turned $4,540 into $15,000 in 8 days trading Apple options. And the biggest thing was that I wasn't really sitting in front of my screen all day. I was using a specific method I'm going to actually teach you today. And then we're going to take that method and see if we can find some really great trades that are going to be setting up for August coming up right away. So before I jump into my presentation, I'm just kind of curious for the people who are here, how many people here have heard me speak before or have heard one of my presentations before? Go ahead and let me know in the chat room. Also, you should see my screen here. It's green, and then the headline, how I turned 4,540 into 15,000 and change. Can you see my screen? Hear me okay? Just want to look for a little feedback. Okay, cool. Lots of people here have seen me before. Some people haven't, so this is great. All right, so let's go ahead and rock and roll. I want to talk about the kind of starting with this case study, and that'll be a good introduction to our method and the back testing and forward testing that we do. So let's go ahead and start there. I used basically 3 steps in a lot of my trade setups, and those 3 steps are pretty simple. I'm going to walk you through them right now. The first one is a payday cycle, which you may or may not be familiar with yet. MACD, which a lot of people probably are familiar with, and then seasonality, which is kind of a cool new tool that we built for everybody. Let's go ahead and start with the first one, though. Here is a chart of Apple, which you're probably pretty familiar with. We're using our Wall Street IO charts, which is the company that I run. You know, we have our own charts and back testing and forward testing and everything. What I'm going to do right now, because I'm on a daily chart, I'm going to flip back and forth between a candlestick and what's called a Heikin-Ashi chart. Heikin-Ashi. And so as I flip back and forth, I just want you to kind of start to look to see some of the biggest differences that you see between these two kinds of charts. And so I use the Heikin-Ashi chart a lot in my swing trading, and I'll kind of walk you through the system for that. But just start to look at the two charts. This is a regular candlestick that most people are pretty used to using. And this is our Heikin-Ashi chart, which I call a payday cycle setup. Go ahead and let me know what the biggest differences you are, and then I'll kind of walk you through how I use this chart and how it kind of helps me set up my swing trades, and then I'll even back test a couple ideas for you with it. Okay. All right, Kathy. All right, cool. So it's smoother. There's less gaps. It makes it easier to see trend and direction. Those are all things that are absolutely true. One of the things that I was drawn to the Heikin-Ashi chart was for those very reasons. It also eliminates a lot of noise. So when I kind of flip between the candlestick and the Heikin-Ashi chart, you can see there's a lot more noise in a candlestick chart, a lot less noise in your Heikin-Ashi chart. And so one of the things I discovered about a decade ago when I started to trade was that a lot of stocks like Apple and these other stocks I love to trade, they go through these natural cycles. And some of the other presenters have kind of touched on that as well, try to catch, you know, the weekly options and everything. Essentially what they're catching and what everybody likes to catch with these FANG stocks is they like to catch these cycles, right? Oftentimes these cycles tend to last 4 to 8 days, and we can measure these cycles. We can trade these cycles. We can even back test these cycles on different indicators to see, you know, what potentially could have us catch these cycles the best. I call these a payday cycle. So for me, what a payday cycle is, it's a 4 to 8 day trend in a stock. So each one of these that I highlighted here, I would consider to be a bullish payday cycle. Again, it's just a 4 to 8 day trend in a stock. It's very rare for Apple to go over 10 days. Occasionally, once or twice a year, you get a 10 to 12 day cycle. But for the most part, these payday cycles are going to last 4 to 8 days. And I like to use the Heikin-Ashi chart to kind of visually see it. So just kind of reading through some of the chat posts here. Let's see. There's no gaps. They're great. Eliminates a lot of the noise. How do you spell the name of the chart? It's Heiken space ASHI. Okay. These charts, by the way, Heikin-Ashi charts, they're going to be available on most of your major charting platforms like TD Ameritrade, Thinkorswim, and all that stuff. What they won't be able to do for you is they won't be able to backtest to show you like how successful the chart is with that specific stock, and you'll find that for the most part, it's a little bit different. Sometimes it works great with the stock. Sometimes if a stock is too choppy, it won't work as well. But for the most part, I really like to use these Heikin-Ashi charts, okay? So when we were first starting our community here on Wall Street AO, we had a lot of new members who would come in and they'd say, hey, you know, I've heard this strategy, you know, using the MACD or using stochastics or using some kind of moving average cross like the 8 over the 21 or using the ADX or some of these strategies that people hear out there. You know, do you know if it works or not? And a lot of times in the past, you know, I'd say, well, I'm not really sure. I don't use that strategy. And so as a group, because we have one of the largest communities of traders on the web, as a group, we kind of started to think about, you know, how we can solve the problem of new people coming in and wanting to know if strategies worked. And so what we did is we hired a bunch of really great engineers and we built ourselves a backtesting machine, and we called that Smart Studies. We launched this 2 years ago, so we've been using it for about 2 years and it's been working really great. The main idea of what this does is anytime you load up an indicator, you immediately see how well the indicator performs with that stock that you're trading. So what I want to do is kind of start with this payday cycle idea. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put a 1-year date filter here, and I'm going to click on payday cycle. Right, so now I have payday cycle and a date inside of Smart Studies. And what this is basically doing is it's now back testing for me on the chart over the last year how well I would have performed if I would have traded Apple, if I would have bought on the first green bar of the Heikin-Ashi and sold on the first red bar. It's like the simplest strategy you can imagine. But you can see just quickly visually, it's a pretty good strategy. For the most part, we've caught some pretty incredible trends, and if you're trading options with them, you can make what I would consider to be an explosive ROI when you catch these big trends. Okay, so whenever you're trading a new strategy or whatever, I think it's a good idea to at least back test it and then forward test it for a little while. With this Smart Studies here, basically whenever we load this up, what happens is it gives us this nice juicy little box here of results. So I'm going to zoom in for a second just so you can kind of see what I mean. Okay, so I'll get rid of it and then click it back on. So right here, you can see the last year with no real good results. It's just kind of blank. As soon as I click on payday cycle, remember I'm back testing, buying on the first green at the close, selling on the first red. And over the last year, the strategy is about 50% batting average, which is not amazing. However, what makes the strategy so profitable is the average win is 450 and the average loss is 194. So out of all trades, all 32 trades, the average win is 450 and the average loss is $1.92 with a 50% batting average. So again, the strategy is not profitable because the batting average is amazing, which it's not. It's 50%, right? It's like a coin toss, right? Now, what makes it profitable, though, is the average win is over twice the average loss. And you can see this strategy just by itself, without anything added to it, has been profitable 8 over the last 10 years. Small loss in 2015 and even smaller loss in 2008. But this little chart across the bottom tells you the year and if the strategy you're looking at here in Smart Studies has been profitable. You could also see that we tell you the average days. The winners tend to last about 6 to 7 days. And that tells you a lot about market cycles, a lot about natural cycles and Apple or some of the other stocks we're going to look at, that if you take all of these payday cycles, which are these 4 to 8 day trends, and you average them out for the wins over the last year, you get about 6.8 days. That tells you a tremendous amount of information about potentially how to structure your options trade. You could use this information even here to identify strike prices. But more importantly, it helps you understand that there's this idea of early cycle and late cycle. Early cycles when you get in, towards the beginning. Late cycle would be trying to catch a swing trade on day 5 or 6 on a cycle that on average only lasts 6 or 7 days. So it tells you a lot about these cycles. So by itself, the payday cycle strategy, which is something you could use anywhere basically that has a Heikin-Ashi chart, buying on the first green at the close and selling on the first red at the close actually is a very profitable strategy for Apple. Again, because the average win is multiples the average loss. And what that does is it generates what we call positive risk-reward ratio. Okay, positive risk-reward ratio. Does everybody see that? Let me know if you have any questions. I'll go ahead and pause here for a second. I just wanted to make sure as we start this case study and the webinar today that we covered at least the first part, which is payday cycles. Again, payday cycles are these 4 to 8 day trends in stocks, and you use the Heikin-Ashi chart to visually see them. Heikin-Ashi charts are available on most major charting platforms. However, I have not found one other charting platform that allows you to backtest it. And as I said, with some stocks like Apple and some of the ones I'll show you today, it works really great, but some stocks are choppy, so I would recommend backtesting it before you use it on a new stock outside of what I show you today. So let's see. Bum, bum, bum. Okay. Question, is it used when stock is trending up? Good question. So you can use the payday cycle for uptrends and for downtrends. I actually had a really great short here in June, which I'll show you why in a few minutes, but I actually caught a bearish payday cycle with puts, as well as you could catch bullish payday cycles with calls. Can you use it on the SPY? Absolutely, you can use it on the SPY. In fact, we have about 8,000 stocks and ETFs in our database, and you can backtest payday cycles on all 8,000 stocks and ETFs to see how effective it is if you have a favorite stock do you like to use. Jerry says, hey, Micah, how do you inform members about getting in and out of trades? We'll kind of get to those details in a little bit. The basic is that what our platform allows you to do whenever you're looking at a strategy like this payday cycle one, which again is pretty simple, buy in the first green, sell in the first red at the close. What our platform allows you to do is basically to favorite a strategy, which is this little star right here. You can see I already have it favorited. But basically you click it and then you name it, and then our system sends you a notification for when it stops and when it starts. So if you like a strategy, you favorite it, and then our system tells you when it starts and stops. And it's not just for payday cycles. Basically, anything that you put into smart studies, like it could be a MACD, you know, you could say, I want to trade the MACD, and the MACD's got pretty good results, right? You could favorite it, and then you can get a notification for when the MACD is starting and stopping, okay? Which we'll cover here in a second. But that's the basic idea, Jerry, of notifications. Ooh, lots of questions. Okay, so in case I miss anybody's question, please just have some patience. We do have lots of time today, and we'll take more questions towards the end. Can the payday cycle be installed in a platform? Like I mentioned, TD Ameritrade and most platforms, charting platforms, already will have the Heikin-Ashi chart. However, they will not allow you to backtest it. I haven't found anyone else that does that except for Wall Street AO, which is the company that I run in the platform, the backtesting platform that we built here for our community. And remember, I didn't mention this before, but our whole Wall Street AO actually started as a social network. So we really started as a community of traders. And as we grew, we started to develop our own tools and software and backtesting stuff for our community. It's been a pretty cool run. Okay. Thomas says, is the payday cycle only valid after the color has been the same for 4 to 8 days? Actually, it's valid the first day. Yeah, so if you have a bearish payday cycle like this one, and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days down, the first green bar is when the new payday cycle is starting. If you wait for 4 to 8 days, you've essentially missed the entire move. And so again, that's a good example of like early cycle versus late cycle. And understanding that these cycles only last for 7 days on average, you don't want to get in on day 6 or 7 because you're very likely going to be getting in on the close to the last day. Michael says, can you use 2 or more indicators? Absolutely. I don't want to deviate too much from this, but basically if you wanted to say, show me how well I would have done if the stochastics was bullish and if the MACD was bullish, you just add both indicators and our system stacks the probability for you and then gives you the results of any stacked indicator combination. So the answer to that, Michael, is yes, you could use multiple indicators if you choose. Okay, so let's see. That's the basic idea of a payday cycle. Okay, now the problem with payday cycles in general is occasionally you have what I call a false start. And this is where we will add a secondary indicator to it. If you remember what I'm going to do really quickly for you is I'll walk you through my 3 steps that I like to go through with Apple, and then I'll walk you through a really good case study so you can kind of see how I managed a 5-figure options trade. Okay. All right. So step 1, payday cycles, understanding that a lot of these stocks have natural cycles. They're already happening anyways, and the Heikin-Ashi chart, which I'm looking at here, allows you to visually see these cycles that are already happening. Okay, and then Wall Street AO here allows us to backtest it to make sure it's a valid strategy. In this case with Apple, we can show payday cycles by itself without anything else is actually a really good valid strategy. Now, as I mentioned, there's a problem, right, that with payday cycles. Occasionally you have what's called a pump fake or a false start. I played a lot of basketball growing up, so I call it a pump fake, but basically you can consider it to be a false start. So what's a false start? Let me see if I can find one. Here's a false start. False start is basically where you think you have a good signal, you had a nice down cycle, you have a green one, and then it basically does not show any follow through. Okay, so where's another false start? Here's another false start right there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a second here and I'm going to identify a few of these false starts. There was another one right there. Had a nice bearish payday cycle, looked like we were going to bounce, but we didn't. False start right here. Actually, a couple of them there. Let's see, up, here's another one. There's another false start for you. And we had a couple back in here. All right, so let me kind of zoom out here so you can get the full spectrum. Along the course of this uptrend, I've identified 6 false starts, okay? Here, 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 over the last year, right? So out of these 16 losses, here's 6 of them. Here's almost half of them basically right here that I've identified really quickly. So whenever you're looking at a trading system or you're looking at adding rules or a secondary rule or confirmation rule to a trading system, the most important questions to ask before you do so is, will this secondary rule increase my average win or decrease my average loss? Or will it help me eliminate some of these false starts? Because that's basically the idea of adding a secondary rule, right? You want to help eliminate some of the losers, maybe add to some of the gains, right? So I want to show you the secondary rule that I have that really helps eliminate these false starts. And back in the day, I didn't have, when I started trading Apple about 10 years ago, I did not have all these fancy tools to kind of back test this. But what my thoughts were, and the way I traded, my theory was that when I used the MACD, my theory was that when the MACD was bullish and crossed to the bulls and trending up, which you can see, let me show you an example here. When the MACD was bullish like this and crossed the bulls and trending up, my theory was that Apple's payday cycles, the bullish ones, were longer in length and were more likely to last 7 to 10 days potentially when the MACD was also bullish. And on the flip side, my theory was when the MACD was bearish and trending down and crossed the bears, the payday cycles to the upside, the bullish ones, were going to be shorter in length. In fact, you are more likely to get a false start on a bullish payday cycle when the MACD was bearish. And it may kind of sound obvious, but that's kind of how I traded over the last 10 years. And up until about 2 years ago, we were finally able to actually validate this idea. And so here's the way this basically works, is now that we have the MACD loaded, you can see the results over here, which, by the way, the MACD is also a valid strategy. But what's interesting is if you look at all these false starts that I highlighted, which were these 6 false starts, you can see that for each of them, let me go ahead and look. I'm guessing what's going to happen is for each of them, the MACD would be bearish. So this false start occurred when this MACD was bearish. This false start occurred when this MACD was bearish. Just the beginning of it, you can see. Again, false start up here, MACD was bearish. False start here, MACD was bearish. Let's go ahead and see if all of these are true. False start here, MACD was bearish, yeah. False start here, MACD was bearish. Okay, so for these 6 false starts that ended up with losing trades, the MACD was really, really bearish, right? So what I like to think about with Apple is that when the MACD is bullish and trending up, and you have a bullish payday cycle, the probability of success is higher and you're more likely to get a longer cycle. In fact, we ran the numbers and with smart studies here, and you can see when the MACD is bearish, which I can just click right here for the bearish toggle, and you're trying to do a bullish payday cycle, on average, they only last 3 days. So your bullish payday cycle on average only lasts 3 days when the MACD is bearish, right? However, when the MACD is bullish, they tend to last longer, a lot longer, about 6 days. So you get about twice the amount of days out of it when the MACD is bullish. And if you think about just a normal ATR, like average true range, which tells you like how much a stock moves every day, for a trending stock, you're going to make more money in a 6-day trend than you will most likely in a 3-day trend. Okay, so if I was to kind of have you take away one big thing today is how to stay out of trouble, specifically now with Apple, right? Because if you get long calls and try and catch a bullish payday cycle, while the MACD is bearish, right? While the MACD is bearish, you're kind of asking for trouble, and all the data proves that you're less likely to be successful. So for a lot of us, we actually either short or avoid being long Apple while the MACD is bearish, because we know, according to all the probability numbers that we have in smart studies here, that the probability of success is diminished, and we can actually backtest that, right, in real time, which is pretty cool. So let me see if I can wrap up the secondary rule, right, which again is, first step was payday cycle. Second step was the MACD, and we're going to jump into seasonality in a second, but I just want to make sure everybody has their questions answered about the second rule. First one was payday cycle. Second one was MACD. And again, when the MACD is bearish, you're going to have shorter bullish payday cycles. When the MACD is bullish, you'll have longer bullish payday cycles. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Let's go ahead and see. Ooh, we got some good questions. What's the settings for the MACD? Right now I'm just using the default ones. You can see right here. 12.26.9. If I wanted to change these to something else, by the way, I can do so just by clicking here. Let's see if I wanted to say, let's say 14. And before I change this, keep your eye over here, by the way. Keep your eye on that. It's instant updates, instant, which is really, really cool. When we looked at all the other backtesting programs before I spent, a fortune on this one to build it, all the other backtesting programs we could find are, the way that they work is you put in an inquiry, like show me how well the MACD would have worked over the last year on this stock, and they'd shoot you the results back between an hour and 24 hours later in a trade log, right? The problem with that is you had to wait for it. So when we built this, I wanted to make sure that you had instant feedback. So if I changed this from a 14 to a 20 or whatever, instant feedback. So you have your backtesting results in under a second. The other cool thing was with the other backtesting programs, when you got the results back, you got it in a trade log. And if you wanted to actually see on the chart, like and plot all the different trades on the chart, you had to manually plot them on the chart. And so we built a feature for shading. The shading here basically shows you each of the trades that were taken, how well they worked, and the trade spans for them. So think of it as a visual trade log. So rather than having to manually plot them on the chart, you can kind of do that there. So I hope that answered your question. I'm going to change this back to a 12. Okay. Vince says, how do you know not to take the signal? I hope that I kind of answered that question with the MACD study, right? So when the MACD is bearish and trending down, the bullish signal is not going to be as good. Now, there's some people who still take it, but you just have to be aware that the probability is diminished and you're less likely to be successful. But if you're really good at managing it, you could do it, but just know that the probability of success is diminished when the MACD is bearish, okay? What about Facebook? Facebook's an interesting strategy. I'm going to use a different strategy on Facebook, but if we have time, we could cover that. Jerry says, if I use both the payday cycle and the MACD, would I be over analysis? No, I don't think so. If you start to add too much stuff, maybe. All right, cool. All right. Okay, so let's keep jamming. If I missed your question, I apologize. And that's the MACD. Any other questions about the MACD? Again, we're using payday cycles, the MACD, right? And the last one is seasonality. Okay. Now, I want to jump into seasonality for a second. I'm going to kind of leave these same things highlighted here for you. Okay. We have the pump fakes and everything like that highlighted. We built this cool seasonality tool, and the seasonality tool allows us to look at a stock's month-over-month seasonality for any date range within the last 10 years. So right now, if I just look at the last 5 years, you could see July and August are usually pretty good for the stock. August is still a bullish month for Apple. As we come into August, you could kind of be looking for bullish trades. July is also pretty bullish. June happens to be a pretty bearish month of the year for the stock, which is why I shorted Apple in June. May is a very, very bullish month of the year for the stock, which is, in my case study, why I bought Apple in June. And you can see for the rest of the year, you have your seasonality. I want you to think about these last few months right here of the year. June, which is usually bad. July and August, good. September, bad. October, good. Let's go ahead and take a look at the stock again. and just kind of relay that information back. So June of last year, we kind of knew June was going to be a bad month of the year because of seasonality. It's one of the worst months of the year. So last June, we had this really, really big pullback in the stock. Now, before this pullback happened, the MACD had already turned to the bears, right? So if you're shorting this opportunity, you had a bearish seasonality for the month and a bearish MACD cross. This pump fake here also happened during a bearish month of the year, during September. Okay, so as we're coming and completing July and August, which are good months of the year, and starting September, which you could see this pullback happen literally on September 1st, a good shorting opportunity happens when you have a bad seasonality month, you have bearish payday cycles, and you have a bearish MACD. Fast forward to October. October is one of the best months of the year, you can see here, October. And so last October, I was putting, I think, over 30 grand into Apple, riding this October wave up. Okay, but again, it wasn't just that I liked October, it's that I had a bullish October for seasonality, I had a bullish payday cycle, and the MACD had just crossed to the bulls right here. Okay, fast forward a little bit more, you can see that it's been following seasonality really, really well this year. I want to highlight May for you because this is kind of going to be the case study, and then we're basically going to use these principles to look for stuff in August, okay? So with May, we had this really, really big move. Okay, we had a bullish payday cycle, we had a bullish cross in the MACD, and we knew in April actually that May was one of the most bullish months of the year over the last 5 years. So we had kind of all three of those data factors going for us. Okay, so I want to highlight a trade that I made, and this is all confirmed real money in my broker. I used Robinhood because they don't charge commissions on options trades, which is cool. So I want to walk you through it really quickly. On this trade, I bought 20 calls. I bought the June 1st call, so this was a couple months ago, and I paid $227 each for them. Total position $4,540. And here's where I entered the trade. I'm going to first look at the candlestick. I entered it right here after earnings. Okay. Entered it right here after earnings. So some would say, Mike, it seems like you entered this trade kind of late. You're on day 3. Right? And I'm gonna address that in a second. But we had a really, really nice run, and as we started to run up, I started to take profits on the trade. So I started with 20 calls. I paid $227 each for them, and after a few days, I was able to sell 6 calls for $775 each, and I collected $4,650 for those 6 calls. Now, why did I choose 6? It seems like a random number. Well, 6 was the number I needed to sell out of the 20 to get all my principal back. So you can see originally $4,540 in the trade. I was able to collect my principal back. So now I have 14 calls left, but I'm in a principal risk-free trade, meaning my principal that I put into the trade is no longer at risk, and I still have 14 calls left. Okay. As the trade progressed, I sold 4 more calls for $630 each, collecting another $2,500 of pure profit. Sold 5 more calls another day later for $720 each, collecting another $3,600 profit. And then I sold 3 more calls. This was my highest sell at $1,000, 50 each, collecting another $3 grand in profit. Total, after selling my last 2 calls here for $935 each, I collected for $1,870, I collected $15,790. So my original $4,540 turned into $15,790. And here's the way I structured that trade. Okay, I bought options that were 30 days out. Okay, and I bought the 180 calls. So they're slightly out of the money. Stock was trading at 176. I bought the 180. So it was about $3.50 out of the money. I like to buy out of the money calls because if I can get it right and they go in the money, then I have what I call an options multiplier that works tremendously in my advantage. I also know that with these payday cycle runs, on average, the big ones are going to last 7 to 8 days. So a good rule of thumb for me is to triple or quadruple that time. Okay. So if I know on average, because I'm using the data, that a 7-day trade is usually pretty average for a payday cycle, I could buy 25 to 30 days. In this case, I bought 30 days of time. So I bought the June 1st calls. They expired here. And I bought the 180 calls, which were slightly out of the money. So I bought 30 days out, slightly out of the money calls. I bought 20 of them. And as the stock started to move up, I started to incrementally take profits, and I finished the trade out and took all the profits during this time. Did not hold it through this compression phase. I was out of the trade, I think, in 6 to 8 days total, but I made a ridiculously good ROI. So if we take a look at this trade now, right, which had a really, really good ROI, and I used Robinhood again for that, so zero commissions. You might ask again, you know, it seems like you got in the trade a little bit late. Well, for one, I wanted to wait until after earnings, but two, I got in on day 3. And what I know about the stock when the MACD is bullish is that the cycles tend to last longer, like 7 or 8 days. So I got in on day 3 with a lot of confidence that it was going to go another 4 or 5 days more because of the data, right? We also had a really good seasonality. So I kind of used all 3 of these metrics that you can see now. I'll kind of come back to this page. I used the payday cycle method that I showed you, which is a valid strategy by itself, which you can use in August, which I showed you. We're going to try and find the best trades in August. And so you could reuse this strategy. I used the MACD to confirm that it's going to be a longer cycle rather than a shorter cycle, usually going to last 7 or 8 days when the MACD is bullish and only a couple days when the MACD is bearish. So I confirmed with the MACD the length of the cycle. And then I use seasonality to give me a lot of confirmation on the month that I was trading, which is May. May, again, is generally one of the most bullish months of the year. In fact, over the last 5 years on Apple, May is the most bullish month of the year. And then June was a really bad month, which again is why I shorted the stock in June with puts. Okay, so one of the main points of this trade is you don't always have to be all in and all out. You don't have to get into the trade and then out of the trade, you know, all at once. I like to get into a principal risk-free trade as soon as I can because then I have, you know, my principal covered. But you could see it was a pretty good trade, caught a nice cycle. It only lasted about a week. It was a fast trade. And I used those out-of-the-money calls, slightly out of the money, 30 days out. But all of the components of the trade were back-tested and validated using the data points that I showed you today. Okay? So how could we use this going forward? Let's talk about that for a minute. Okay, let me make sure I got everybody's questions here. Okay, lots of questions come up, by the way. So again, we'll have a Q&A at the end if I miss anybody. So, okay, let's see. Yeah, I like to use stochastics, Vince. In fact, check this out. I won't spend too much time on this, but here's the payday cycle settings for the payday cycle. The stochastics is actually very similar. Small, worse batting average, but you can see the average win to average loss is really good, and the stochastics has been profitable for the last 9 years, by the way, in Apple. How important is that to know? Actually, I'm going to switch this to candlestick, and that'll change a little bit. There you go. How important is it to know, just a general question, that the indicator you're using, whether ADX, Chaikin money flow, MA crossover, any combination of crossover, MACD, payday cycle, stochastics, how important is it to know that the indicator you're using actually works with the stock? I think it's very important to know. Okay, so that's to answer your question, Vince. Yes, stochastics just by itself is a pretty good strategy with Apple. Okay. Okay, so again, payday cycle, MACD, and seasonality. Let me know if there's any questions there. I also highlighted the trade that I took on it, so hopefully you kind of have a little bit of an idea how I put these strategies and indicators to use. Okay, so let me walk through these. So you just learned how to use the payday cycles to quickly confirm short-term momentum. Payday cycles alone are going to help you make more money. I want to highlight a student of mine, and then what we're going to do is we're going to look at some other stocks that work great with these strategies and see if we can find something coming up for August, okay? So I wanted to highlight Marco. Marco went from break-even to over 6 figures in profit. He was a break-even trader from Redondo Beach. He wanted more consistency in his trading. He was flat for many years in a row. He'd make money and then lose it. How many people here can kind of relate to that? He was kind enough to send me a screenshot of his live trading account. And yet, so you could see he was basically flat, even down a little bit. This day, which is highlighted here with the red arrows, when he started using payday cycles in the MACD, because before that he was kind of gunslinging, shooting from the hip. You know, he'd make 20 grand and then lose 30 grand. Make 15 grand, lose 20 grand. On this breakout here, when he started using the payday cycle in the MACD, he made over $120,000 with about a $25,000 investment into Apple and Alibaba payday cycles. Now he mostly trades Apple and the FANG stocks. He's made over 100 grand this year by itself trading Amazon, and he uses the MACD and the payday cycles confirmation. I got this note from him a while ago. He says, I'm in Apple, Netflix, Tesla, all open right before the MACD crossed the bulls using payday cycles, plus the MACD on all 3 trades. I'm doing awesome, obviously. He's been very generous about sharing his results of our system, and I thought that was pretty cool. I thought that I would show you that because it is a good way to kind of introduce the idea that when you start using a methodology that is back-tested and forward-tested, that you could actually look at the results before you trade it. You could have a lot better results in your trading, and I think a few other people here touched on it, some of the earlier presenters, about, hey, if you don't have a strategy that you know works, like don't trade, because otherwise you're kind of just guessing, and that's never going to work consistently. So I haven't had a chance to officially introduce myself yet. This is me. I'm Michael Lamar, CEO of the Wall Street AO community. Again, we started out as a social network, and as our community grew into one of the largest trading communities, we started to have a lot of people coming in saying, hey, does this work? Does this work? Does this work? And so we kind of got together and band together as a community. We hired some really great engineers, and we built our backtesting program for the community so that the whole community can backtest things that they hear on the web or ideas and stuff like that. I'm an expert stock and options trader. I'm a husband, father of twins, as Jeanette mentioned earlier. I got a boy and a girl, and they're 2.5. They're amazing. And what I do is I help traders get through the profitability curve by using strategies that have been back-tested and validated over time. So how many people here have watched Tasty Trade? This is me at the Tasty Trade Studios with Tom and Tony, my associate Jake Pelly, and Liz and Jenny. Tom here sold TD Ameritrade for over $600 million to Thinkorswim to TD Ameritrade. Here's me at the options trading group in Phoenix, teaching them how to trade options. When people ask me what I do, is I help traders break through the profitability curve by using strategies that have been validated. And I know that may sound like obvious. Yeah, you want to use strategies that work. But for the most part, a lot of people are not testing their strategies before they trade them, and I think that's a big mistake. Okay, so what does a breakthrough in a profitability curve look like? This is exactly what it looks like. The profitability curve is flat, and then you have a breakthrough in a profitability curve. Okay, so I coached a student once. He was down over 300 grand, and in 18 months, they made all back plus about $500,000 in profits. I checked it on him about a year and a half later, and he was up almost $2 million, which was pretty cool. And again, using mostly MACD and payday cycles. I've just shown you Apple for today. Let's take a look at some other stocks to see how well they work with payday cycles, and we'll see if we can find something coming up here for August. Okay, how to find the best trades for August. Okay, so let's actually start with Apple. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just load up the MACD. So using the same analysis we just learned, what do we have currently? We're not quite in August yet. Well, we have what looks like a top. We got a really nasty bearish candle. We have our first red bar, so there's not really much to do here. If we break 190 here, it's very likely, unfortunately for the bulls, that we're going to go into a bearish payday cycle. Okay, we just started one here, but if we continue down, we'll go into a full bearish payday cycle. So if this MACD crosses to the bears, by the way, please have a lot of caution if you're bullish on Apple, right? Because if the MACD is bearish coming into August, and we break 190, got an extra line here, and we break 190, it's very likely we could come down to 180 or 185. So thinking about trades even for the end of July or August, there could be, for aggressive traders, a break of 190 could take us $5 to $10 lower, especially if the MACD goes bearish. Okay, I'm a little concerned here as far as the setup because the MACD is bullish. We've moved up a pretty good amount. I think we've moved up like $5 to $8 in July so far. And what I'd be looking for as far as the best trade potentially set up for Apple is I would look for some kind of pullback or pattern. I'd look for a new bullish payday cycle to set up, which would mean I have a bearish one and then I have a first green one. And I'd look for confirmation that the MACD was still bullish. If the MACD is crossing to the bears and we get a bullish payday cycle starting, we won't have that great a probability with it. And for a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people overtrade because they feel like they always have to be trading. And I think in this case, it's better to wait and be patient for the high probability setup using the methodology that I just showed you that works because it's been working for me for 10 years. And now that we have the tools, I could actually validate, yeah, it's a great strategy and we could all use the tools to make sure it works. So that's what I'm thinking so far with Apple. Okay, so wait for this bearish setup to complete, look for a new bullish setup, and I think that's going to give you your highest probability setup here for Apple for August, okay? Now, next up, let's just actually, what we should do is let's load up just the payday cycle by itself. I'm going to look through a couple other stocks. Okay, I want to look at Netflix. Netflix was down almost $8. It's been in a bearish payday cycle, so there's been no bullish setup yet. It looked like it was going to start here, but it ended up closing pretty bad. Okay, I want to highlight for you how successful this payday cycle strategy is with Netflix. Okay, check it out. Again, batting average hovers around 50%, but the average win is almost 3 times the average loss. $16 for the average win. Average loss is only $5.24. Again, lasting about 8 days. There's this magic number in the market, about 8 days. 6 to 8 days is a normal cycle for a lot of these stocks. Okay, so for Netflix, here's what I'm thinking. I think that if we can hold 350 and start a new bullish payday cycle in August, I think we have a pretty good setup. Okay, now Netflix is interesting. There's many times where you start to get a good setup and you get a pump fake. So what I actually like to do on Netflix, rather than getting it on the first green one, is I actually like to delay this for 1 day and check out what that does to our ROI. The amount that we make goes up, the batting average goes up, and the average win here, folks, look, it went from $5 down to $2. And so what exactly am I doing here? What I'm basically doing is I'm delaying the entry for 1 day. So rather than getting it on the first green bar, I'm getting it on the second one, only if there's a second green one. Because in many cases with Netflix specifically, you have even more pump fakes, which is these little ones where you look like you have a new bullish one starting, but it pump fakes and stops you out. So if you wait just 1 day for Netflix, you're going to have much better success. Okay, so as far as the best swing trades for Netflix for August, this is what I would use. It's a straight payday cycle strategy, but you're waiting for the second day to get in, not the first one. And if you decide to join Wall Street AO, it's very easy to load the strategy up, just like I did in about 2 seconds. You favorite it, you name it, called best swing trade, let's say for August. And I'm going to get a notification for when this trade starts and stops by our system now. Okay, let's take a look at NVIDIA. This is another popular one. NVIDIA. All right, let's see. Slightly worse batting average, but again, average win to average loss is pretty good. It's been a profitable strategy for 3 years. Interesting that the days, again, about 6 to 8 days on average. Okay, let's look at Amazon. This has been a popular one. How's the payday cycle work for Amazon? Amazon, look at this. Great batting average, 14 wins, 9 losses. Average win is $40, average loss is $18, so you still have a good risk reward there. So the strategy just by itself works for Amazon. So I've showed you a few trades. Let's see, we've got NVIDIA, it works. Netflix, it works, but with a slight adjustment, which I showed you. Amazon, Apple, those are a handful of stocks that you could use for this strategy coming up here in August, as long as the market continues to behave. I think that these are going to be pretty good. Okay, let's see. We do have some questions coming up, which I'll circle back around to in a second. Just want to make sure we're making good time. So I showed you Apple. I also showed you Netflix, Amazon, NVIDIA, and a few other stocks. The main point is that if you want to trade a stock using payday cycle or any indicator, it's important you backtest it. All you have to do is just load it up here in Smart Studies. You can backtest it. Make sure you're not using a strategy that doesn't work. Okay? So I hope you now have a clear distinction of what an optimized trade plan looks like. It's not like we're shooting from the hip. It's not like we're guessing. We're using all the data components to make a data-driven decision, like I did with the Apple trade in my Robinhood account. Again, using the payday cycle, using MACD, using seasonality, all those data points that we could collect about a stock. I want to highlight Lisa D and how she uses our tools. Lisa struggled finding good entries and exits, and she joined Wall Street AO a few years ago. Zero knowledge of technical analysis. Her goal was to make money from home working part-time. And in 2016, she's continued to do well, but in 2016, she made 171 winners out of 197 trades. She was very, very active, and that year, she grew her account from $100,000 to $320,000, and this has been validated using payday cycles and using stock only, no options. So she's a stay-at-home mom. She lives in Northern California, and she absolutely crushes. She's making 6 figures a year using her tools. Here's what Lisa says. Before entering a trade, I always refer to my charts and seasonality tool and Smart Studies inside of Wall Street AO before she trades. Okay? So I think it's better to be a specialist than a generalist. Some of the other people here have kind of talked about that. Some of the other presenters focusing on a few stocks. I think it's a lot better to focus on a few stocks than trying to trade everything in the stock universe. When I started Apple Trader about 8 years ago, we quickly grew to one of the largest, to the largest Apple trading community in the world. And I was able to speak with a lot of billionaire hedge fund managers, former floor traders, former market makers, and there's a common theme between them. For the most part, they were all specialists. So when I asked my buddy, who is a former market maker or floor trader, and said, what are you trading? He'd say, I'm trading corn. Well, what did you trade last week? Oh, I traded corn last week. What are you trading tomorrow? I'm trading corn tomorrow. What are you trading next week? Trading corn next week. Oh my gosh, you're a specialist with corn. And say, yeah. And so I think it's better to be a specialist than a generalist. And I think that there's a lot of misinformation out there about trading in general around the idea about like always having to be trading very frequently, trading all the time, adjusting all the time. And I think that the brokers, for the most part, are the ones kind of spreading that information because they benefit 100% of the time from people over trading. And I think that when you become a specialist and focus on a handful of stocks that trade well, and you get to know their natural rhythms and characteristics, I think you're going to be a lot more successful. I could go into that more, but I think that it's best to start with 1 to 3 stocks. This way you get to know the natural rhythms of that stock and how it moves. And I think something amazing occurs when you focus on just a handful of stocks versus chasing every shiny new object. You get to know its natural rhythms and characteristics and cycles, and you could be more successful with them. I think it's easier to stay disciplined, and you're also less likely to be caught off guard when you become a specialist on a few stocks versus a generalist. The question kind of comes up a lot, like how do I get up to speed with payday cycles? And the quickest way to get up to speed with this is to use our 90-day roadmap. So the 90-day roadmap is a program that we created at Wall Street AO to help people who are really, really busy get your swing trading down to only 30 minutes a day by taking only the very best, highest probability swing trades. And so the 90-day roadmap kind of starts you out by learning payday cycles, learning some basic option stuff, learning the best stocks to use with payday cycles, which we have a running list for, and the best options to use from that, which we also have. We give you a trade journal to actually track the progress, a really great trade journal for accountability. And then you start to move into more advanced things like adding indicators, adding confirmation indicators, potentially advanced spreads, and then you start to move into what I call the realm of predictability and then the world of profits inside the 90-day program. So how can you get the 90-day roadmap? So as our way of saying thank you for being here today, I'm actually going to give it away for free to everybody who signs up for our Plus membership today. The Plus membership is $197 a month if you go to our website and sign up. With the Plus membership, you get our 90-day roadmap. Okay, so that's a $300 value. We're also going to give you everything that's basically included in our Plus membership, which is unlimited backtesting, access to smart studies, access to seasonality, our charts, our data, everything. You're going to get daily live meetups that are recorded. You can attend live, but they are recorded. You get our live trade room. You get full access to our community, full access to our university, all the charts and data, again, $197 for our platform. We're also going to give you access to our university. Here's a note we got from Matt Webb. Since joining Wall Street AO, I tripled my options account and have been consistently learning so much. Again, thank you. So you get the 90-day roadmap plus the Wall Street AO Plus platform. We're going to give you our Payday Cycle Masterclass. This class is going to be the fastest way for you to get up to speed with payday cycles. We're going to include that again for you, so you'll get instant access to that $300 value for the Payday Cycle Masterclass. We also put together some case studies for you. I was actually able to get a 30-minute interview with Lisa to talk to her about her success, what she's been using, how it works with her life, everything like that. We're going to give you that case study, $200 value as well, because it's important for you to learn not only how I use our tools, but how actual people are using them too. Okay, we're also going to give you our 12-point trader discovery workshop. This is a whole hour-long workshop that has you walk through our trader discovery sheet so that you can find out exactly where you're stuck as a trader, and then we help you develop a framework for kind of getting through those areas. And this is kind of more an interpersonal work on trading. A lot of people don't talk or discuss this, but it's incredibly important. We actually have people telling us this is the most valuable thing that they've done with us, is going through these different areas of their trading to work on them specifically. Okay, so we'll give you that workshop. $1,147 value, okay, for everything we're going to give you today. Here's what the pros are saying about Wall Street AO. What you and your team have built is pretty incredible. We began using it as a company, and since our membership, we haven't been able to put it down. These folks have $200 million in managed assets, and they're now using our backtesting and validating tools to validate their trades before they make them with $200 million. When we first started our community and started building tools, we had a lot of attraction from retail traders, stay-at-home traders who wanted to validate their ideas and stuff. Now we're actually starting to gain some traction with, multi-million dollar, $100, $200 million hedge funds, which is pretty exciting. Okay. So again, here's everything you're going to get. 90-day roadmap, the Plus platform, Payday Cycle Masterclass, the case studies, and the Trader Discovery Workshop, about $1,147 in value. Again, we're going to give that to you for the Plus membership price, which is normally $197 a month. And as a webinar special here for being here today, if you sign up this weekend, you're going to get $100 a month off. Okay, so instead of $197 a month, it's only going to be $97 a month. I'm going to go ahead and post the link up into the chat room. If that's cool, I'll go ahead and post that now for you. Let's see here. And then I'll definitely have some time for a Q&A. So I just posted that link up in the chat. Whoops, I might have posted it in the wrong one. There we go. All right, I posted that link up for you. You could check it out. Ton of value here for only $97 a month. I also have a fast action bonus, and I know we have, I think, 5 or 10 minutes left. This is my favorite part about the webinars, and my favorite part about what I do is I don't have a lot of bandwidth for this because, like I said, I'm incredibly busy. I got 2 young kids. I'm actually building a house here in Santa Barbara, running my company and doing my own trading. But for a select few people who sign up right now, you're going to get a free one-on-one strategy session with me. And again, I can't do this for everybody because my time is very sacred to me. But for the first 10 people who click that link, sign up for a $97 offer for a month, $97 a month, you're going to get a free call with me. Okay. Some of the benefits of the strategy call is together, we're going to find out where you're stuck right now in your trading. We're going to develop an action plan and roadmap to profitability for you. And you're going to get a tailored walk through our platform designed to make sure that you get the most from our tools and resources. You're going to get the same roadmap that I created with one of my students who turned a $300,000 loss into a $500,000 gain. Okay. What we're going to have you do, if you sign up right now, you're basically at Wall Street AO, just email us and say, hey, I just signed up, and we'll get you set up with that. What we are going to have you do is we send you a link before our strategy call. This is what makes our strategy call so effective. We send you a link to our Trader Discovery worksheet. And in this, we're going to have you fill this out twice digitally, once for where you are now and once for where you want to be as a goal. And so before our call, I'm going to review your personal Trader Discovery worksheet, right? And I'm going to identify the areas where we have the largest gaps. Maybe your area that you need help with is your ability to manage trades, or it could be your ability to manage or follow rules or gauge profit targets. But I'll be able to look through this worksheet really quickly and find out exactly where you're stuck. And that's what makes these calls so beneficial to you, is because instead of having a broad, random conversation about trading, we'll be able to pinpoint the exact areas of your trading where you need the most work. And then I'll help you develop a framework for actually improving this area of your trading, which is pretty exciting. Okay, so that's what we kind of do in the strategy call. So here's some frequently asked questions. How much is chart data? Chart data is included free. I pay that for you. Our platform's web-based, so you can access it anywhere. All of our data is live. There's no contracts. You can cancel anytime inside your profile page. And we have in-app chat support. We have really great support. And we also have live meetups throughout the week that you can get support with as well. So here is the offer. Everything you see here for only $97 a month, no contracts. You can sign up with the link. I'll put it up one more time. And then we'll take some questions. And then, by the way, everybody, we've already had 5 people sign up. And so we've got 5 spots left on those 10 slots. So if you want to join me and you want to do a strategy call, which is a huge benefit, you got 5 slots left. So if you're on the fence, click the link, join up now, and we'll get you in one of those first 10 slots. Okay. So I'm going to take a few minutes because I know we have about 3 to 5 minutes left before the next presenter, and I'm going to answer some questions. And I also want to highlight Rick, we've got James, we've got Tiffany, and we have Susan, and we also have Anthony, who have just signed up. Those were the first 5. For everybody who just signed up first, thank you. What I want you to do is email support@wallstreet.io and say, hey, I was one of the first 10, and then we'll send you the link to that discovery sheet digitally so you could fill it out, and then you could book our call right away. So thank you for signing up. Really, really excited. All right, we got Nancy here also just signed up. Nancy, what should you do now? So I'm going to say email support@wallstreet.io and say send me the one-on-one. Send me the one-on-one. So I want you to email support@wallstreet.io and say send me the one-on-one. We'll send you the link to the trader discovery sheet for you to fill out digitally. And then as soon as you submit that, Nancy, it'll redirect you to where you could actually book a call with me right then and there. So you could get that all done now, book a call, get on my calendar. It's all automated for you. Cool? All right. So we got some questions. Kathy got you signed up as well. Daniel signed up as well. Very, very cool. Juan asks about cryptocurrency. We don't yet have cryptocurrency, but I can tell you one of our goals is to be able to, once our platform is 100%, we're going to be able to backtest, stock, options, futures, forex on any time frame with almost any indicator. We're not quite there yet. We're actually launching the next version of our platform in the next 6 to 8 weeks, which is going to be really exciting. And once that's done, it's going to open up a whole new realm of possibility for us. The next platform is really cool. We've been working on it for 14 months, and you will get that upgrade for free as a member, by the way. Thomas says, do you have set profit targets or just get out when the color changes? Generally, whatever strategy you're backtesting, the exit indicator for the backtest will be your exit indicator. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Just signed up. Thank you, Nancy. Nizar says, do you have options only service? So we're not currently backtesting options. For option traders, we do have a whole options course in our university, and I would say at least half of our community trades options. Remember, we actually started as a social network, so we have a lot of really great traders in there. I trade mostly stock and options. I guess it's about 50-50, but you can use any of the strategies that we talked about today for options trading by using the data, and again, we'll show you how to do that inside of the 90-day program, okay? How long have I been doing this? We started Apple Trader in 2011. So yeah, 7 years. I've been trading for 10 years. Wayne says I'm in. Awesome. That means we have 2 spots left, by the way, everybody, and we got about a minute left before the next presenter comes. How much for the premium service? Right now we're offering our plus pricing for here at $97 a month. That's the best thing that you can get. Okay. It's going to be, Bill, I would say sign up using the link and then email us about the premium stuff, but we'll be able to hook you up there, buddy. What is the website? I'm going to post that link up right there for you. Hank. James says, does payday cycles work well with value stocks as opposed to growth stocks and FANG stocks? That's a great question, and my answer is, it's a little different with every stock. And what I would recommend doing is if you sign up and you load up this payday cycle here, just basically at 00, you could change this to any ticker in our database, any ETF or stock, and you'll immediately be able to see if the strategy is effective or not. And in the 90-day roadmap, we actually show you the best stocks to use for payday cycles. Okay. Tom says, if you get a false signal, do you just get out the next day? Well, we hope to do our best by actually eliminating the false signal before you even get in. Nizar says, how often do you send ideas? So this is kind of a distinction here. Because our platform in itself is a notification system, everybody needs to set up their account, which we help you do in the program. But essentially, any strategy that you favorite and name, right, by clicking the star, you can get a notification for. All notifications for your account that you favorited come out 1 hour before the market closes, okay? Can you use this with ETFs? Yep, we have all the ETFs you can think of, basically. Does it work with indexes? We have SPY, Qs, IWM. We don't have SPX yet. Michael says, yes, the answer is yes. We do have a list of best performance stocks. That's part of the 90-day program. Work out ETFs. Somebody asked about LVS real quick, and then I think we've got to run. By the way, we have 1 spot left. I just checked. So again, if you're on the fence, like this is the time to come in and join us. 1 spot left for that strategy call. And I think we're through a lot of the questions. Michael says 8 days is a fib number. That's probably why it works so well. But you know what's really interesting is when you start to dig into it, there's a natural rhythm to the market that these tools help you identify. This strategy, payday cycle by itself, by the way, does not work lately with LVS. 26 losers, 13 wins, you would have had a losing system, which is interesting because you're like, oh, visually it looks like it could work, but in reality it doesn't. This is why you have to backtest it. Like if you jumped into LVS and tried to use this strategy, it wouldn't have worked for you. So maybe you don't trade this stock with this strategy, right? Cool. Again, could you please have Nick send me the special to sign up? Okay, I think I got most of the questions. Again, if I missed them, I do apologize, but I'm kind of running out of time, and I know we have to jump to the next presenter. We've got one spot left, by the way. So again, if you're on the fence and if you're thinking about it, jump in and join us. We've got a really, really great community. You get access to all the cool stuff that we highlighted today, which is up here on the board, only $97 a month. And if you have any other questions, email us at support@wallstreet.io. I hope that's cool if I post the link up there. But you could definitely ask us anything. We are happy to help. We'll be around all weekend. This offer will continue through the weekend. And the last question here from Felipe. He says, does this offer continue? So yeah, you get grandfathered in at this price, folks. We're not going to charge you $97 this month and $197 next month. We don't do that. So this offer actually, you get grandfathered in at $97 a month. And when we launch our new version of the app, which has a ton of new stuff we've been working on for 14 months, that will come for free, right? The new stuff will come for free for you as a member. Cool? All right, everybody. If you just signed up, please email, please email support. This will be the last thing we do here. Support@wallstreet.io and say, send me the one-on-one. And then we'll get you all sorted out, Hank. We'll send you the link to the digital form and that'll redirect to my personal calendar, okay? And again, you're going to get a lot of benefit. Like I don't have a lot of bandwidth for those calls. So we have a lot of opportunity to work together, and we'll get a lot of cool stuff done. And I'm excited to work with everybody. It's one of my favorite things that I do. And if you have any questions, again, you can email us. I think we're going to turn this over to the next presenter. I believe we have one spot left. So if you want to join us, come and join. We're happy to have you as part of our community. Okay. I think Jeanette will probably chime in here in a second, but I think that.
Yep, I'm right here. I'm listening.
Okay, cool. So one more person asked for the email address, support@wallstreet.io.